Hello?
Hey, how's it going?
Okay, how are you?
Good. Um, I want to wrap this conversation back towards the woman question.
The woman question.
Yeah, and I guess there's sort of two sectors I want to tackle. One of it is a more societal, like broader discussion, I guess, and then the other part is more personal. But
The woman question.
yeah. So the question I had messaged you a while ago on a question regarding the growing discourse between men and women in
Oh,
today's
yeah,
world.
yeah. About how to get them to hate each other less?
Right. And you had said that we need to have better skills, better interpersonal skills, and that we should be learning those in school.
Yeah.
And I guess it's kind of weird to wrap my head around that being taught in school. It feels like that's more of a thing that you learn just by having experiences in nature with other people, like as you develop. It doesn't seem like something that would be effective to teach kids in like a classroom setting or whatever. You can't really force it. So I'm curious to hear what your response would be there.
I think if you look at like treatment centers for people with mental illness or social workers, like there are people whose job it is to teach you anger management classes, to teach you to regulate and express your emotions. So it's not, I don't think it's totally, you know, science fiction or something. I think that in school you do learn lessons about your emotions, but the main lesson you learn is that they don't matter. That the class groaning like, "Oh, we don't want to do this," is almost just seen as cute and irrelevant.
I think
When you
it's
what?
Sorry. I was gonna say I think it's irrelevant in the context of like the teacher has to teach the subject anyway, so whether the kids like it or not, like it's
But
gonna happen. But I think part of
yes,
the
but
teacher's job is to get that to stop, right? To regulate everyone.
I don't agree with that. I think that that imports a few premises that are detrimental to kids' mental health. So we're going to do this anyway, and how you feel about it doesn't matter. That you could say that that is almost a central lesson of school.
Would you agree that if the teacher can get kids to like the subject, that it would be more effective in actually teaching them?
I think that it doesn't matter how you feel and we're going to do this anyway runs counter to a lot of the interpersonal lessons that we would need to learn for men and women to treat each other better. So, uh, the teacher could avoid the conflict by, yeah, being the fun teacher. So we've seen those who are like, we're going to do whatever you guys want to do because I just want you to like me. But not neither teacher really grapples with or confronts um, what do you do when someone in authority tells you to do something and you really don't want to? What if there is a book you just really don't want to read, or a paper, or an exercise, or something you just really don't want to do? The current system says you just do it. And if you don't do it, there's something wrong with you. If your boss asks you to do something, you do it. If it's your job to do something, you do it. And if you don't want to, you fucked up. It's kind of weird that there is no track or even concept of like, if you really don't want to do this, just don't do it then. Like I have to evaluate how much of the work you did. And so your grade will drop. But that's not an evaluation of you as a person. You're not a worse person. I'm not going to shame you. If you don't want to do this assignment, then don't do it. Really, if you don't think it's worth it to you, then don't do it. I've never even seen a teacher think something like, or heard them say anything that could possibly be interpreted as them having that thought anywhere in their head. That I am asking a large, diverse group of people to all do the same thing, and some of them probably should just say no. So I think that conflicts between the teacher and the student, there are many. And the rule seems to be that the teacher is right, even though they're just human. Their high school teachers are not particularly experts in their fields that they're teaching, even. There's all kinds of ethical problems and weird shit with students that they do. But the definition of the situation is always the teacher is right, and if you don't do the thing that they tell you to do, you're a bad person. And then in group projects, you're going to work together and you're going to do this project. There's no acknowledgement of the top down, I told you that you have to interact with this person. And whatever weird interpersonal, sexual things that I don't know about that have happened, or unspoken sexual things, or social things that are inevitably happening in any room full of 14-year-olds, I am blind to that. You'll be blind to it. We won't. Not that we have to talk about it explicitly, but that there's no sense of responsibility or awareness of anything that is actually happening interpersonally in the room. And like when kids look back at middle school and high school, those are the things that they're going to remember. They're going to remember the interpersonal interactions with their classmates, not what the fucking assignment was. And then there's assumption, just figure it out, ignore that, do what I say, get it done. And that, like, you learn to socialize by brute forcing the assignment and not thinking about what is actually happening or talking about how you feel to anyone.
I guess I want to first I want to tackle the idea that the teacher's always right, and I agree that that's definitely the sentiment from the student's perspective. Like they feel like the work is forced upon them and they don't have a choice and they have to do it. But I will
Yeah.
say I know a lot of teachers through friends and family, and that's not how their school system works. If their students decide not to do assignments and they get poor grades, then that is seen as a reflection on their effectiveness as a teacher, not necessarily the students themselves. And like the state and the federal government has
Yes,
standards for how well students should be
but
doing,
that's
and if
this
they fail to meet those standards, then it's not.
but that's the same problem. There's still no room for the assignment was good. The teacher is fine. The student said no just because they didn't want to. And that was a good decision. There's no room for that.
Right.
You didn't, so someone failed. If the student, if 30 people that you sat down in a room, 30 14-year-olds, don't all do the same thing that you told them, then something has gone wrong. It's either your fault or it's the student's fault. Whoever gets blamed for that, the fact that that is seen as a problem is like rape culture. That's rape culture. That's what these women are talking about. I don't think they identify it, these feminists. I don't think they identify this specifically as rape culture, but it is. You have to say yes, and if you didn't, then somebody was wrong. Kids aren't taught to say no.
You think there's any practical way that we could introduce that option?
I think that socially we should see grades being bad as like okay, like it's okay to get bad grades. I think there's the shame of like, I'm just not interested in this shit. I just don't want to. You told me to read this book. I don't want to read it. Like, that's my body. You're telling me to do something with my body for hours that I don't want to do.
So I
And then, like,
guess in that case, how should we measure aptitude versus interest? Like if a kid doesn't want to do something versus if they just suck at it. If the purpose of school is to teach them
maybe
how to
they're
be
the
good at it, how
same.
do we measure that?
Maybe they're the same thing. I don't know that we need to measure it. Suck like if you right now it's more shameful. Like I got shamed a lot for my grades because I have high aptitude and low interest. That's seen as worse. Where like all my teachers were like in middle school, my one of my teachers sat me down and they're like, "Hey, all four of your team teachers met and we agree that you should have the highest grades in the class, but you don't. You have like kind of bad grades. But we all agree that you're like the smartest kid in the class." And this was meant to be like a big like intervention. Maybe they said that to everybody, but they did say it to me. And like, if you really think I'm the smartest kid in the class, then maybe I don't find what you're telling me to do fucking interesting. And I know that eighth grade transcripts aren't even looked at by colleges. So what am I doing? Every time I try to sit down to do one of these assignments, I have an existential crisis of like, I'm going to die. I have one life to live, and I'm not going to spend it reading this fucking retarded textbook that you gave me that smells bad. So I think that there's just like a social problem of like, not everybody is going to go to Harvard, and not everybody wants to.
Right. Well, even the college problem aside, like if the Department of Education sees the scores, they don't really care whether it's a interest or an aptitude thing. But I guess you're saying that's part of the problem is like, don't you think we need some way in order to distinguish that? Otherwise, we should just like, what's the point of having standardized testing or anything like that at all, college aside?
I just don't know that there's a way to. I mean, you could just ask the students, like, do you find this confusing or boring?
And if they say boring, then just say Livy.
No, maybe the assignment needs to change. I don't know. Is school supposed to be boring? I just think there needs to be we need to take a big step back and think about what school is. Because I don't really know what it is. I know that it's daycare. I know the kids have to be there while the parents are at work. That it seems like a baseline requirement. Beyond that, I don't know what it is. But I know that the way it's talked about is like you have to learn that life sucks and you have to do what other people say. And then they're like, "Oh, there's this huge problem with like girls getting raped." Well, yeah, that's because the guy raping them is thinking life sucks and you have to do what I say. Oh, there's a huge problem with girls having eating disorders or kids doing drugs. And like, there's, and like, we don't want black kids buying Glocks with switches and doing drugs. They like we want to get them in school, sitting and doing boring assignments that make them want to rip their own fucking eyes out. There just seems to be no connection or responsibility taken for like, what if you made school a place that people want to go to? And is there any effort at all to accomplish this? It doesn't seem that there is. And I think part of that would necessarily include treating people like human beings whose feelings matter, which I think then reduces. I think that to back to the woman question, I think men and women think of each other, think of sex and families and dating and marriage as assignments. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to make my body do this because it's just what you do. You got to learn that this is what it's going to be like when you grow up. You just got to take that dick. And then they do. And then they fucking hate each other. And I think this is directly related to why.
So, I guess going off that last statement, like we're seeing a rise recently of more people are single, we're not getting married, not having kids.
Yeah.
Women's sexual liberty has never been higher.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. They don't want to have sex
right,
with
they're
you.
saying no to the you just have to do it rule.
Yeah.
So I guess you would see that as a good thing in some sense.
Yeah.
And then if we take it one step further, a lot of guys are also starting to grow really resentful at that. And would you say that they're also like just misguided, or do you think
They're not
both sides are right?
misguided. They have an entitlement that has been taught to them. If you cross the T's and dot the I's, then you will be rewarded. And the reward is sex. So they. And that is all taught to them. It's taught them specifically. It does not matter how anyone feels. All that matters is that you got the number right. You're making enough money. You got a good job. You got good grades. And now you can have the main thing that you care about, which is sex. The If you want to have sex with someone, you have to understand them. And that is not, if you want someone to do something with you or for you, you have to understand each other. And that is not taught. The opposite of that is taught. That they'll have sex with you if they feel like they're supposed to. And so that is like the main way that men ply women into having sex.
Yeah.
I bought you dinner. Now you're supposed to. I have a good car. Look at my car. Now you're supposed to. The men are doing what they think they're supposed to do. And they're like, so why isn't, let's all do what we're supposed to do.
Would you say in the last 40 years or so, do you think the understanding of feelings between men and women, the understanding they have for each other, has decreased, stayed the same, or increased?
Increased.
But
I
you're
don't
also
think the
saying
I don't think
you're
the
saying
problem
it's
is that communication is breaking down. I think the problem is that women are like, I don't actually have to do this.
right. You're saying that instead of guys just having a checklist to do in order to sleep with a woman, now they actually have to put in the effort to understand her
Yes.
and connect on an emotional level, which you're saying we've done a better job of over the past 40 years,
Yeah. But
and
not a
yet,
great job.
but not a great job.
Also, like something interesting about TikTok is that there's a very popular form of a TikTok is like the thing that I think everyone is thinking, but no one wants to talk about, like this awkward situation that we've all been in, but no one has ever articulated before. And then it those like blow up because people are like, oh my God, that's exactly what it is like. And I think there's a lot of them that are by women about what it's like to date men. Like I saw a TikTok that was like, I met up with this guy, like POV, you met up with the guy from Snapchat, and it's two girls acting it out, and then the girl who's playing the guy is like, what's up? And other girl's like, hey, and then like there's a song playing on the radio, and they're like, the girl who met her is like, oh, you like this song? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, oh, do you want to like go eat somewhere? And she was like, I was thinking something else. And then it's like slowly reclines herself back in the chair like she's expecting a blowjob. And it has like, I don't know, when I saw it, it had like 100,000 likes or something. And it just makes you be like, is this really like, I understand you're maybe not saying this literally is like how guys act on dates, but like, is that what it feels like? And I think that, makes women start to think like, I don't like these interactions and I don't want to have them, which I think is a good thing. I don't think the sex and marriage rate should be thought of as just, or dating rate should be thought of as like straight up, is this good if it goes up or bad if it goes down? Because like in a male dominated patriarchy, the sex and marriage rate is very high, and women are always in relationships because they can't have their own lives. So I do think that progress is being made, but I think if we want to reconnect with each other in a healthier way, then, you know, forcing kids to do homework assignments they don't want to do and to actively disconnect from their bodies and feelings is antithetical to intimacy and consent and sex.
I guess I agree with that, but I guess you're also saying that you don't really know a good way to implement something like that. Like we would have to reevaluate what school means as a whole, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could just start talking about people's feelings in the class. Like, you know, why did you? I don't think I've ever had a teacher be like, "Why did you say that? How did this book make you feel?" It seems like this article pissed you off. What pissed you off? I've never had a teacher ask me a question like that.
You grew up in Massachusetts, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I did too. And maybe it's just a product of luck or I don't know, but I feel like my experience is much different. I feel like, especially in response to essays or articles or books, like a big part of the discussion was what sort of emotions the author's trying to provoke, and I guess what that says about.
But that's different from how did you feel?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like we would discuss about how we felt, and then do we think that was intentional on the part of the author? What are they trying to
Well,
do
that's
by
good.
evoking that feeling in us?
I don't know.
And maybe that's just luck, because I can definitely imagine a situation where a bad teacher just doesn't care and they just go over what's the book's theme, what's the book's motifs, whatever. So maybe that's just a different experience, but
I
regardless,
also, but I also think that how do you feel telling another person how something they did or said made you feel is would be the next step. How do you
and
tell
that's
someone
definitely
how you
not
feel about
present.
them?
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely none of that in education.
Yeah. And starting with the teacher, how do you feel about what I how are you guys feeling? How do you guys feel the class is going? You know?
So do you think once we establish that, do you think we would even need to have a separate either class or time devoted to
No,
explicitly
no.
going
Yeah, I don't
over?
think it should be a specific class. I think it
Okay,
needs to be worked into every interaction.
gotcha. And
That
that'll just
that
the okay,
that how you feel matters.
gotcha. So it sounds like you think that we're just at an awkward time where like pretty rapidly women have seen a exponential rise in liberty and sexual freedom, and that's resulted in them having the choice to say no, even if the guy took all the quote unquote right steps. And so as a result, we've seen marriage and birth rates plummeting. But it sounds like you actually think we could be starting to head in the right direction as we start to talk more about each other's feelings and connect more to each other. So do you think if all else stays the same in like another 40 years time, you think we'll actually like get back on track?
I don't know. I don't know if having lots of babies is on track.
Would you say that's
IQ is negatively correlated with birth rate. The smartest women on the planet do not want babies coming out of their vaginas for whatever reason. Or not, they don't want it as much.
think they don't want it or they just don't have time for it because they have generally higher paying, more demanding jobs.
I don't know.
Or conversely, that poorer women or dumber women or whatever don't really think about the repercussions of having 15 kids. So they
I
pop
don't
out
know.
like two or three and they just keep going because they just don't know any better.
Animals clearly don't know that having sex is going to make them pregnant.
Yeah.
Uh, so then, as foresight scales up, fertility scales down. Sex feels really good. It suggests to me that um, if sex stopped feeling good, what would happen to the fertility rate?
I mean, nobody would have sex
You think no one would?
except for people who are very consciously trying to have a baby.
Yeah. So what would happen to the birth rate?
Overall, it would go down.
Okay. Being intelligent and independent and treated with respect and your boundaries mattering and your feelings mattering functionally is the same as a separation between sex feeling good and babies coming out of you. So I think ideally women are going to behave with respect to child rearing or childbearing and fertility as if sex does not feel good. And that is where we are headed. So I don't know if that's back on track. They'll only have babies when they really want to. Is there a way to make them want to, or will they want to if we're in a utopia with UBI for everyone, robots doing everything, women can do whatever they want, have whatever experience they want? Is the thing they're going to choose, I want to change diapers? I don't know.
Well, it sounds like what women want is a guy that understands them.
Yeah,
I
but does
think
that make them want to have a baby?
I think so, to some degree at least.
But statistically, it appears that that is not true. The
Well,
better
do you
women
know?
are the better women are understood, and the better women, the more control women have over their lives, the less babies they have.
I guess I would have to challenge you on the idea that women are better understood, because it seems like, just based on what I've seen over the internet and also personal experience, that they don't feel that way for the most
Okay,
part.
but compared to like Afghanistan,
Sure, I guess.
like again, just if you draw a graph of women feeling understood in their society and birth rate, the less understood they feel, the more babies they have. I think. I assume.
Maybe a correlation there, but I think you could also draw. I, I could maybe think of an example, but you can probably draw another correlation between, again, IQ, money, whatever else, law.
Yeah, but I think those all go together. So anyway, I just don't think of us as like getting off track. I think maybe women just um, don't want to as much as we would like them to want to. I think it's an existentially scary thing to think that a woman who is treated well and self actualized and in power of her life does not want to have babies. That's a
You're saying
scary
we've,
thought.
yeah, you're saying we've basically grown, we've evolved too much for our own good. Like we're too aware of, I guess we're too smart, we're too free, we have too many choices. And in that world, why would you ever choose to burden yourself with a baby.
Yeah, unless you really want one, which could be good if the only people having babies are people who really want them. But look at
Do you
rich
think?
people. They have surrogates. They just pay other people to do it.
Yeah.
And then they pay nannies to raise the baby. They just only want to do the fun parts. So maybe robots will make it so we can only do the fun parts, but we're still going to need women to breed. But if everybody has UBI, I don't know. How much do you have to pay a woman who has free food and housing to have a baby? Probably a lot.
Do you think there's a significant, or do you think there's an increasing number of women who maybe initially in adulthood they don't think they want a baby because they'd rather focus on career or friendships or traveling or whatever, and then they get to an age where once everything else is satisfied they realize actually I did want a kid all along, but it's sort of too late?
I think either choice is horrible. Life sucks. Anything you do, you have to do that one thing. So I'm sure they feel sad that they didn't have a baby, but I don't know if that means that they should have. I know that anyone who has a baby probably spends a lot of time thinking about what their life would be like if they didn't. You're
Do
going to
you feel
regret
like,
either choice.
well, would you say regret? If you think about what life
Yes.
could have been like the other way around, is that necessarily regret? Because regret means
Yes.
you think you made the wrong choice.
I think people have a tendency to blame the fact that they are going to die on their circumstances, and it makes you feel bad about like inevitably you want it both ways, and you can only have it one. So I think if regret means an emotion, then I think you will feel regret either way. Like sometimes with
I think
Shaylin, I'm like, I'm like what the fuck? What is this relationship? And then I'm like, oh yeah, I think life just sucks, and I'm blaming it on you. All the limitations, all the specificity, all the quirks, the problems. Like I could just be with someone else where I wouldn't have this problem. I feel like that's just
so. You think you feel regret about dating Shaylin?
sometimes, yeah.
Would you say if you could go back, like, would you trade her for someone else?
No,
I guess that we have a disagreement on what regret means.
because I know that if I know that, well, one, I'm very attached to Shaylin now, but two, even like with someone else, I'll be thinking the same thing. Everybody's thinking this in every
Right.
relationship.
So I don't think that's regret though. I think that's greed. You just kind of want everything.
I don't think wanting to live is greed.
Well, you want Shaylin, but sometimes you also want someone else. But you know you can't have two people
It's
that
not that
want
I
a
want
certain.
someone else. It's just that I'm just pissed off at the limitations of life. And so I don't think that a woman who's like feeling regret that she signed up to take care of babies for 20 years, that means she wants to like trade her kids in. I just think it's inevitable that you're going to feel that way. Anyway, all this is to just say, I think you're oversimplifying a bit when you say like, oh, these women who just travel and have friends, like they're going to regret not having babies. I don't. That doesn't mean that they should. I think okay, it feels like you're dancing around a bit. Women should be listened to. Women should be independent. Women should have control over their lives, and women should have babies. These are incompatible ideas. You have to pick one. Ultimately, you can't
Right.
have both.
Right. And I guess that's the That's the crux of the issue I'm having.
That you want it to be that women want to have babies. They
Yeah.
want to get
So,
married. They want to have sex. But the more independence you give them, the less that seems true. Not that none of them want to, but overall, the trend is downward.
right. But I guess I'm saying that I don't see that as evidence that women don't want babies. I think I'm seeing that as evidence that, or there just could be a number of reasons why they're not having kids.
But that's all just framing. Yeah, maybe men need to change, and then women will say yes. But when you say I don't think what's really happening is that women don't want to have babies. That's just you're imposing a frame on their decision when you say that.
I'm not necessarily saying that they do want babies and that they're just lying to themselves when they say they don't. But I think just because women don't have kids, I don't think that means that they don't want to have kids. They don't not want kids.
I think if they have the means to have kids and they choose not to, that is a fine working definition for they didn't want to. And it
Mm,
may be that the things that you think would make them want to more would make them want to less.
I think we need to break out what it means to have the means to have kids. Because I feel like, depending on how we define that, either everyone can have the means to have kids or very few people.
Money, intimacy with partner,
I guess what I'm saying is,
social support.
if you look at all the successful women, I think their idea of having the right means to have kids is much more narrow than the less successful women. I think if you took like a low IQ poor woman and were like, hey, do you have the means to have kids? I think she'd be like, yeah, sure, why not? But if you took a really intelligent, successful, conscientious woman who was like, can you have kids? And they would be like, oh, in this economy, no way. Like, have you ever seen the movie Idiocracy?
Yeah.
Sort of like that. You know how they interview the two families in the beginning?
No.
Basically, there's two families that from today, and one of them is like a redneck couple, really dumb, poor, don't know what's going on. They have a bunch of little kids running around, and they just keep popping them out. Like they don't really think of it. And then they have another couple who's like really wealthy, educated, high class, and they interview them, and they're like, "Yeah, we just can't really have kids in this economy yet. I'm sure 5 years down the road, the conditions will be better." And blah blah blah. It's like they want kids, but they just don't feel like they can.
It feels like you're running this analysis with a outcome that you need to reach, which is that if women are treated well and empowered, they will want to have kids.
I think it's really hard for me to dismantle the idea that people, not just women, but like everyone innately like wants to have sex and wants to have kids
Those are
by
different.
proxy.
Everyone wants to have
They're
sex. When we can separate having sex from having kids, we have less kids.
but we also have less sex.
I don't know if that's true.
Do you think there's a rise in virginity for young men and women these days?
I don't think that
I
is.
guess
I
just
don't think
everyone.
that's connected to contraception. I don't think contraception makes people have less sex. I don't agree with that.
I'm not talking about contraception. I'm just
But
saying on the
I
whole.
am. When you introduce contraception, people have fewer kids.
Well, yeah,
I'm saying that you seem to have an outcome that you want to reach. So in your analysis, you keep stapling ideas together where you're like, people want to have kids and have sex. Those are completely different things. If we separate them, we find that only one of them is much more true than the other one. People want to have sex way more than they want to have kids. But
I
by
think even if
stapling them together, you keep this like pro-natal conclusion ahead that you're like barreling towards, and I don't
I
think
think
it makes
even if we
sense.
do separate them, I think it's separately true that both we're having less kids and we're having less sex. I I would have to look at the research, but I'm pretty sure that's. I know you're
My
saying
sen-
it's due to contraception, but I also think
my sense is that you are bent on an analysis that leads to women want to have kids, and that might not be true. And when I say that might not be true, you immediately go to external reasons why it wouldn't be true, that maybe it could be fixed. If the idea of a fixed woman is a woman who wants to have kids, then you've just looped back to patriarchy. You have to choose. If a woman doesn't want to have kids, is there something wrong with her? Period. That needs to be fixed? If so, then you are pro patriarchy. It may be that you want a nice patriarchy, but it is still patriarchy. If women choose, and there is nothing wrong with either choice, then you have equality. You can't have it both ways.
that's
You can't have
also
we need to fix relations so men and women understand each other so that therefore women will say yes to what I want them to do with their bodies.
that's a choice under the framework that you've given, which is that left to their own devices and granted complete freedom, that women actually don't want kids.
I'm saying
Which,
they
if
might
if that's
no
true,
uh,
then yeah, I'd have to pick one.
no, you have to pick one now. And if you don't pick one, by default you choose patriarchy. Well, we'll just see how it goes. We'll try to make things better, and I'll reserve judgment for later whether a woman who doesn't want to have kids is a, a sign of a broken system, that she just doesn't have her needs met. She hasn't met the right guy. That's patriarchy by default. If you don't want a patriarchal society, you need to explicitly state we need women to be free and independent and safe. And when they have those things, they may choose to not have kids, and then we'll go extinct. That is the only way. If they have to have kids at the end of your analysis, then everything before that is really about making them comfortable. We're going to rape you. We're going to stick our dicks in you and pump our gross, weird slime into you and make babies shoot out of your pussy. You have to do this. We're going to do this to you no matter what. But if you want to be comfortable, you can go to grad school first. You can have a little career, whatever. Some of you can be dykes, but we're going to do this to you. If that is the message, that's patriarchy. The only way to not be pro patriarchy and to therefore be a feminist or egalitarian or humanist or whatever non patriarchal society is to you have to be willing to go extinct. There's no way around that. Will you erase your bloodline and all human bloodlines to set women free? If the answer is no, that's patriarchy. That's rape culture.
I agree that the correlation exists that when
There's no
women
way out
gain,
of this.
I let's see. I think I agree with the correlation that as women gain choice and power and whatever, we have less kids. I disagree that that means that taken to its max, no pun intended,
No
where
pun taken.
if women have complete control over the sexual and birth market, whatever, that will go extinct.
I'm making an if-then statement. I'm not making a prediction.
You're saying
If
you're saying you have to accept the possibility that we can go extinct.
you have to prefer it. If women do not want to have sex and do not want to have babies, we must go extinct if we want women to be treated well. Either they are held down and made to have babies, or we go extinct. You may have come up with a very nice way to hold them down and make them have babies, but that is still what you're doing. The
And
willingness to go extinct is a central pillar of feminism, so much so that it probably is feminism.
if they don't want to have sex, don't want babies, then yeah, that all follows.
Yes. And you, in your analysis, it feels like you are veering toward, well, maybe there's a way to think about this so that they just need a little space. They just need to be understood. In order to audit your true underlying beliefs, I think you need to commit to extinction if that is what they want. If you can't, then you're just coming up with a complicated way to rape them and have them not know or like it or, go along with it, whatever. But it's still rape.
You think women want to have sex?
Sometimes. Yeah.
You think they're decreasingly or increasingly want to have sex over the past however many years?
I don't know. They might want to have it more, but they might be having less of it because they don't have it when they don't want to. They might be having more sex that they want to have, even if they're only having 10% as much sex overall. I don't know. I don't know if this is really answerable. I just think that
Yeah.
all we can do is analyze the questions we're asking and the framing that we're laying over they're just women's decisions as we do so.
I see.
I think I gotta go to the next caller. Do you have
Okay.
a final
Um,
thing you want to say?
I don't think so. I think we're pretty okay. I would have liked to have, I guess, gone a bit further, or I guess jumped to another point, which was more to do with my situation instead of society. But if you don't have time, then that's fine, because that would be a whole nother discussion.
I mean, we
Maybe
can
next
talk
time.
about it very briefly, but if you think it's better to just call another time, then we
I
should.
think we can probably just save it for another time.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Thanks.
thanks for calling.
Yep. Take care.
You too.